Let's call this meeting to order. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Are there any resident comments and or questions? Anyone? Bueller? All right. What's reports? Number 5. I feel like that's new. Oh, never mind. Public service. Let's jump right in. 6.1, Capital Improvement Plan, City Hall Project. Mr. Merrick.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The City Council had posted a notice to review the capital improvement plan, which would essentially, if adopted, authorize the Broadway City Hall project to move forward in the financing connected with that project. Prior to opening that public hearing, we, as staff, received some news from Wold and Krause Anderson that we think, or that we know needs some consideration and discussion by the council. So prior to opening the public hearing, we need to review this issue with you. So before I get into the details, just want to give the council and those watching a little bit of the background. In April, the council selected the Broadway site for the new City Hall with a total project budget of just under $4 million. This was the concept design phase, which had an estimated tax impact of $201 a year on a $300,000 home. In June and August, the council respectively hired Wold as the architect and Krause Anderson, otherwise known as KA, as the construction manager. And then throughout the summer and fall, we had a community stakeholder design session. The HPC worked on it. We had a staff-led building committee, and then the council weighed in on the review and development of the building design. That design development phase increased the building size from about 8,500 square feet to 10,500 square feet. The council received a preliminary financial analysis in November of 17, increased the total project budget to $4.75 million, which had a tax impact of $218 a year on a $300,000 home. The City Council established a public hearing, as I have alluded to earlier, for this evening to look at the capital improvement plan. That plan was prepared and reviewed by Springstead. Paul Steinman is here to answer questions as we move forward with this process. On December 18th, Wold presented the City Council with the floor plan and building design, and the council approved that. And then as a staff for the December newsletter and the January newsletter, sent out a bunch of information on the financing for the building, as well as the floor plan and building design, inviting folks to this January 16th public hearing. Then last week we had a number of unexpected events occur, and so this is kind of gets at kind of the heart of what we wanted to address with the council tonight. Wold and KA scheduled a project conference call on the budget on January 10th. On the 11th, which was Thursday, Wold and KA communicated that the existing project budget of the $4.75 million was not in line with some of their most recent cost estimates. With that information, staff reviewed options with Wold, KA, Springstead, and we also involved the city attorney. And then yesterday we met again to develop options for the City Council to consider. Now, I'm obviously leaving out the biggest probably area of concern as it relates to the budget and what is the significance or what's the difference in the budget from what the council had seen earlier in the fall of 17 and now. And so with that, I'll invite Wold and KA to present that information to the City Council.
I'm not coming up. Get that thing to work
Evening, Mayor and Council.
again. Sorry.
Good evening. It's okay. Thought we were getting an award. You usually only come down when you got awards. I thought that's strange. Joel Dunning with Wold.
Pat Mulcahy with Krause Anderson.
So I think that we would like to talk a little bit about our process of the design and estimating. Typically, you know, the process of design, you start with a very ambiguous information, and your whole process is trying to narrow it down and make decisions and end up with enough information at the end that someone can build the project. And at multiple stages throughout the process, we check ourselves on the design and compare it to information from contractors, from vendors, from third-party estimators. One happened in November, and at that time, usually that's the end of schematic design. That's typically a process would be to look at the square footage and compare it to other projects that are similar in size, similar in scope, and multiply the square footage times the cost per square foot. And both Wold and Kraus-Anderson went through that process, even reached out to some other vendors that gathered up more information and believed we were on budget in November. Throughout November, December, we added more detail to the drawings to get to the point where we were actually able to do a takeoff of materials and apply unit costs for labor and materials. And again, Wold and Kraus-Anderson each did a separate estimate independent of each other, and we actually go out to a third-party estimator outside of us, and both came to the same conclusion when we compared notes that the actual cost to build the building, even though it hadn't grown in size, was more than the square foot takeoffs that we had used previously. So I don't know if the number is important now or if that's in the next slide.
Is this, not now?
Not yet, okay. Any detail
Well,
on the process?
I think one thing that we probably didn't do a very good job of communicating with you guys is what our process is on this estimating and how we go about it. Like Joel said, with a schematic design, there's not a lot of detail in there, and we have to kind of take a big picture approach to it and put just a square foot cost in there. But like you said, as the design gets developed further, we can take off how many square feet of roofing material we have, how much square footage of carpet we have, where our footing lines are, and we can get a more detailed number. And that's when we started putting that number in. That's when we saw we had an issue.
So we should have coordinated the schedule of when our estimates were happening better with the public hearing announcement and with the information going out to the public. But at the time, we all thought that the project was on budget, so we apologize for not communicating better and not having that foresight to align our schedules a little bit better.
So the project variance, after we kind of got through the meetings, was communicated at an additional $379,988 from the previous budget that was prepared in the fall. So with that, we developed two scenarios for the city council to consider, and there'll be opportunities to follow up at any time with anyone here regarding any part of the process. But one is you could essentially just move on with the public hearing tonight, take that input as you've published and notified residents of that opportunity to at the capital improvement project plan of a not to exceed $4.75 million. What you'd have to go on to do is direct staff to work with Wold and Kay to recommend an additional $200,000 in building design changes. So that could, as an example, be size of building, building materials. It'd have to be more than likely something significant to get to that $200,000 amount. The second scenario would be to cancel or reschedule this January 16th meeting. You could take input from residents that chose to attend tonight on the project, but you'd be moving it to the February 20th meeting and increasing the project budget by $4.95 million. Now, I can get into the areas of, because we had mentioned the $347,000 of why only $200,000, or not only, but why the $200,000, not the $347,000. We developed the project scenario 2, with a couple of caveats. The council had at one point given themselves the ability to reimburse themselves for renovations with bond proceeds for the cost of renovating the fire station and public services building for the temporary city hall that we'll need while the new building is under construction. So rather than doing that, those funds would be used out of the special capital project fund. The next two pieces are pieces that we could look at regardless of the scenario that the council chose, would be to restructure the contractor payments and eliminate $100,000 in capitalized interest costs. That was included in the first budget estimate, and so that can be done regardless of the council's decision. The second piece, which has already been started in some part, is to work with Wold and KA to make minor design changes that do not disrupt space needs or the exterior building elements. And then the final piece is a redesign of the architectural roof over the council chambers lobby section, which can save $80,000. So here you can see the kind of the peaked roof, steel roof on just over the council chambers lobby area of the building. And then the second drawing shows that space without it. So that would be a step that the council could take in scenario 2 to get to a point where that $4.95 million would address the project needs as you've seen them and as we've communicated them with the public.
So just so I understand, can you go back one? One more. So as part of waiting until February 20th, we're assuming and making the change of redesigning the architectural roof over council chambers lobby to match the main section of the building. And $200,000?
Correct.
Okay.
So you're adding 200,000, you're taking off that roof, and we're taking out the capitalized interest. That's in addition to the 200,000. Now we have, and I'd like to have Paul Steinman at some point come up, but before we get into the kind of the financial pieces and kind of move on, I'd like to throw it back up to the council if they have questions for KA, Wold, or staff.
You want to do that now, before Paul comes up?
You can. I mean,
Oh, that's what I heard, so I'm confirming. Okay. Council, anyone have questions for Wold and or KA? Ross Anderson.
I have a question.
Cindy?
I mean, I understand that, okay, the numbers weren't quite right, whatever, but I'm just curious. We went from a $260 square foot to $324 a square foot. That's a huge difference. I mean, was it an increase in material costs or?
That could be part of it with the hurricanes. There are some material shortages out there right now. Another thing is just, it's tough. This building is a smaller building. And so if you look at an elevator, it doesn't matter what the size of the building is, a bigger building, a smaller building, it's gonna be, say it's still $100,000 on a building twice this size, it's half the square footage cost, that's what it's gonna be. So there's still some elements that, no matter how big it is, there's still gonna be those costs that just increase that square footage cost that.
You make that sound like it's a surprise.
I think to the level of what it was here, we're still making our best estimate, our best, judgment on what we can see with what we have. And unfortunately, at a schematic level, there's not a lot of detail in there. And so we're making the best that we can do with the information that we have.
When will there be a lot more detail?
There's a lot more detail right now. We have.
Why we have the
square
numbers.
footages. Sorry.
Okay.
With that detail right now, we've done a full, we've broken it out into what we think our concrete bid would be, what our roofing bid would be, where our drywall costs are, and broken it down to those components right now. And that's where we've got that higher level of detail. That's why our number has gone up, is just we have more information to put together a more detailed cost estimate.
Wasn't the original thought process based upon $210 a square foot?
260.
Wasn't the original cost estimate done at $210 a square foot, and there was a contingency built in for 25% because there was going to be some play, and that brought us to 260, and now we're at 324, or am I missing that? You had taken an estimate from a building that was approximately the same size, the same everything that was the original, and that was at $210 a square foot.
There
And we
was-
added 25% to 260, and now we're at 324.
There was another job that came in at $210 a square foot, and we did look at, it was a larger job. There were some different factors in it, and that was one of the projects that we used to come up with our 260. We did put some inflation in there, and we put in some different sizes for, for that the scale.
Economies of scale.
Yeah.
Does that 324 also have that, I guess, cushion in there? Or is this a harder number?
There's a 5% contingency in there of $190,000 for the building, and there's also another $50,000 in there for possible soil corrections that are included in that.
But the
number.
first one had the 25%? The
No,
260?
The 25%, that portion was included in the,
The 260
In
part.
the
And now we're
260.
down to the 5, okay.
So, I just want to express my disappointment. This is really, we hired Kraus Anderson, as I'm sure you guys are aware, at you weren't the cheapest bid by $45,000. There were 4 folks up here who promised that familiarity, experience with your work, that this was the best company we could have, and I was hoping that for that $45,000 we wouldn't be experiencing this, because this is that same heartburn is the term that I used to describe my feeling that night when we made that vote at the $45,000. This is a bigger heartburn to the tune of the $347,000. We've communicated this with the community, and we're either going to have to go back and say we're wrong, or we're going to have to cut down this project more into scope to that original number that we shared. So I'm big time disappointed, majorly bummed. To what point are we confident in these new numbers? And let's not have any more surprises like this going forward.
well, with these numbers, we do reach out to active bidders in the market, and that's where we get a lot of our numbers from on this. We've reached out to multiple electrical contractors, a couple mechanical contractors, masonry drywall. That's where we get our input from, is on these guys. I've done many projects with Wold. Their consultant is very accurate also on that, and that's kind of why we both do our own estimate separate from each other and then come together and see, and I think we were off less than $30,000 on our budget here.
Can I just,
Please.
so is this delay going to cost us anything? Will the bids, the estimates be higher 6 weeks from now when we have to go back to these folks for the bids?
In our experience,
One construction season, it shouldn't matter that much.
Okay.
Sometimes it comes down to which day are you opening bids on how much competition there is for individual projects that might be also bidding that same day. 1 month isn't gonna matter.
Okay.
Anyone else?
So Mayor and Council, before I bring Paul up, I want to direct your attention to a handout that we placed at the dais and that's available at the front desk as you walk into the council chambers. On the top is a revised budget from Kraus Anderson. And we'll place this on the website as well. Revised budget from Kraus Anderson. The original is in your packet. Page 2, 3, and 4 relate to what Paul Steinman is going to be addressing with the council, and that's tax impact, and then the sources and uses for the bond. But then I wanted to direct your attention specifically to the last few pages. One, and it relates to the scenarios that you can choose. One is a draft notice for a public hearing for February 20th, 2018, that would set the project budget at $4.95 million. The last two pages are a resolution which you could adopt tonight after holding a public hearing, which would set the project budget at $4.75 million. So with that, if I could maybe have Joel and Pat step down and have Paul address the city council on the financing piece.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. So in anticipation of this discussion, and one of these options is to increase the CIP borrowing number by holding a public hearing on this larger number, $4,950,000. So we ran a preliminary structure based upon that because we needed to get to this highlighted line, basically, the project budget. And it matches very closely with what we see now with some of the revisions. So the par amount of bonds, the total amount of bonds that would be issued here, $4,950,000, and there's basically just those three uses of funds. So $4,840,000 and some change into the project fund for construction of your building, and the remainder is costs of issuance. So the larger number from $4.75 million to $4.95 million does have a larger impact on a $300,000 home. That impact using the same net tax capacity number as we used to calculate the $218 impact is now $237. So these are pay 17 taxable net tax capacities, but we wanted to use the same number to make this calculation. So that's the impact of the larger structure.
Thank you.
Happy to take questions.
Yours is the easy part. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't think, does anyone have any questions for Paul?
Not for Paul.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
You bet.
Thank you.
That's the easiest you've ever gotten off. So, I mean, I think we can talk all night, but it really boils down to the council direction of scenario 1 or scenario 2. I think that's ultimately where we are. I'm not going to give a long narrative. Does anyone have any questions or comments that they'd like to make?
I would like some information from staff, and I know they won't have it here tonight, but in light of what we've just seen, that it's going to cost more if we keep it the same, I would like to know what will the higher project amount add to the annual property taxes of the $200,000, $300,000 homes? I've already got that. But going forward, you know, every year we're going to have new homes coming online. We've got residential building in the pipeline. I would like to get some sort of scenario that could show us what, going forward, as we start to spread those costs out among new homeowners, what it's going to look like.
Do you have I don't mean to interrupt, but do you have a number that you'd like to see in terms of if we add in 2017 through 2020, if we add 2,000 people?
Well,
Do you have any parameters that you're looking for?
Well, my parameters are that it be a conservative estimate. You know, let's say I don't know how many homes we have in the pipeline right now, but it's,
550.
yes. So, you know, something conservative, just to give us a picture of what
You-
we can expect.
And I just want parameters because I want to know what to expect now too, but are you comfortable with, say, if we add 400 homes in the next 2 years, what it does to a tax impact?
No, I don't think it'll be the 400 homes. Staff would know, I think, better how many they think will be built
In how long?
say over the next 10 years,
Okay, all right.
okay?
Is that enough information for you?
Yep.
Okay.
And then I just have one other piece of information I'd like, and you might know that off the top of your head. When will the TIF status sunset on the Fleet Farm project, and do we have a ballpark figure of what their taxes might be per year?
It did sunset for us. The county took it over.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, Paul, come back up here.
Oh, hey, maybe you're not off the
thought you were
hook.
done that easy.
Hey, speak to me.
I wasn't done. So 2020 is when the Fleet Farm is done, and so you will have that tax capacity to spread in 2021. And I maybe can answer your first question now as well if you want.
Oh, really?
Do you want to just move
Wow,
in?
you're really prepared.
Look at Larry's like, I'm no value.
So we did a little bit of market value and tax capacity trend research dating back to 2001 to today. Your average market value increased on average each year 113%.
Wow.
So there were a number of years in '01 through '09 that were 124, 134, 129, et cetera, and then there were a couple of down years, but an average of, that's your market value. So your taxable net tax capacity is the number we use to calculate that impact, as you know. That tracks sort of closely with market value. So 112%
Okay.
per year on average. But I don't think that we would want to make estimates based upon 112% a year on average, but
No.
I'll do whatever I'm directed to do. But if we did 1%, inflator to the taxable tax capacity, we would be back to that $218 impact on a $300,000 home in 2021. Because you get to enjoy almost $200,000 of Fleet Farm tax capacity.
Oh, okay.
That gets spread that same year.
And that's if
21.
we don't add anyone?
That's using these new numbers at
Okay.
4,975,000. Now, one thing, just to be fair there, Brent and I debated this a little bit several months ago, but if we assume 1% increase in taxable net tax capacity, 80% of your property is residential, so that $300,000 home, usually when we do this exercise, we would inflate the home as well.
Right.
But in this case, in 2021, if someone comes here and buys a $300,000 home at that time, that would be the impact, $218 a year.
Oh, that makes sense.
Okay. Thank you.
Bet.
Anyone else? I had a narrative, but it's not healthy. What's that? Thank you, thank you. So I'll just put it out there let's discuss what we need to come up with tonight for city council direction is project scenario 1, and we hold that public hearing tonight. Project cost of what we originally decided at 4.75, and direct staff Walden K to recommend $200,000 in building design changes. But that's where my frustration comes, because never mind. Or project scenario 2, we'll cancel the public meeting this evening, take input, not formal testimony from those residents already in attendance. Are there any residents in attendance for this particular meeting? Do you have anything you'd like to add? Okay. Come on up. Please state your name and your address for the record. 6.5.
share it?
7.
Public hearing's not open, she doesn't.
Krista Godell. I live at 975 Woodview Court. I've lived in Carver for about a year and a half. Great city. Hoping to see it grow. This is my first meeting that I've been to. Moved from mayor and was involved in various commissions there, so I'm kind of used to being on your end. I had this big speech planned out, making sure you were, fiscally responsible and, watching the taxes and not charging homeowners too much, but I can see the disappointment on your faces when you saw what the increase was going to be. And that you're considering, how it's going to affect each person. Knowing the city is going to grow, but how can you guarantee it's going to grow? I think Carver has a very diverse population. Some people, these are their first homes. Others, these are their forever homes. So people are going to be coming and going, and are you going to get those people to move to Carver knowing that their taxes are going to increase because of this, building? How are they going to benefit from it, and how are you going to be able to continue to sell Carver and get people to move here? So those are just kind of my thoughts.
Much appreciated.
Thank you.
And I'm glad that none of this is easy.
No.
The hard part for me, now I'm back into my narrative, is that we do have a process. And I think something that frustrated me earlier was, we have our numbers and they're accurate now, and you have your budget. You've had your budget the whole time, and now we're accurate to the budget that you guys have come up with, and we're asked to fix it. That's my only frustrating point in all of this, is that we go through the process, and it's kind of the recruiting process. We develop that relationship and we make promises. And I can't know architectural, I can't know construction management, so we bring in professionals to do that. I know that I don't want to spend more than $4.75 million on a city hall. We absolutely need a city hall. I think we're past that point of that debate. But the reality is that we've come to terms in a long, arduous process with a number, and we're asked to now go to the public and tell them more. And none of this, in my opinion, should have been a surprise. I'm not here to lambaste you guys. You guys are professionals, you do what you do. I think you understand that we have to do what we have to do in terms of answering to the public. We have to look at these people in the eye. They live in our community. And I think Courtney put it massively bummed. It's as articulate as I can come up with for me. We had an issue with our architect on the public works / fire station years back. And I won't tell you the solution for that because Bob Schoenig came up massively and ate his entire fee to do that. Different circumstances, so I'm not asking you to eat your entire fee. That's not what I'm intimating. But the reality is that process absolutely sucked. And I felt like we were where we needed to be. And, you look at this and it's only $200,000. And in the grand scope of things, it's not that much money on a $5 million process. But we're being asked to come up at the last minute and fix this. Mr. Merrick had the perfect analogy for where we were. We were coming in for a nice soft landing, and we actually had people that were saying, just build it already. And now we're back to this, and I think now that my narrative is over, thank you for listening. I am for project scenario 2. We cancel our January 16th meeting, and we propose capital improvement plan not to exceed 4.95 for the Broadway City Hall project.
I'm also for that.
Okay. With the guys that I'm not happy about it. And I'll tell you what, for me personally, and thank you, by the way. For me personally, I think I could have come around and figured out the 200,000. For me, it's the time. We have to wait till February 20th now. And maybe it's time to let our community heal, but all right, my narrative is done. Please.
I agree also. I think scenario 2, where we're going to cancel this one and then move to the February 20th. However, when we're looking at the 4.9 number, if we look at project scenario 1, it says that we're going to recommend that they take a look at design changes to bring that number down some. I guess I would like to see some of that for scenario 2 also. I'm not sure if this is an and or.
It is with a caveat, so we do plan on looking at small design changes. The reference that I was making on the 200,000 was related to, in order to come up with 200,000, you'd have to do, instead of a brick, you'd have to maybe do a metal panel, or maybe you take out some square footage out of office spaces. The number that you get at the 495 is doing the smaller pieces, and in addition to the pieces.
That is doing the smaller pieces.
Correct.
Okay, all right. Okay, so is the,
That is doing the roof.
That's doing the roof.
Okay.
The goal, and one of the things that we discussed yesterday at our session is, and from it, we want the kind of building where there's a light switch, not this big elaborate electronic keypad that turns on the lights. So instead of having, floor to ceiling tile in the bathroom, we're gonna have floor to ceiling tile on the wet wall, and the rest of them will be just painted sheetrock. So it's changes like that that represent, I think, the values in our community, but also try to save costs for things that maybe are overkill, if you will. So it's,
is the footprint of the building, the size staying the same?
yes.
Okay. I think that is important if we're building this for the future. The point is, we were running out of room at City Hall. I'm glad to hear that it's not decreasing in size. But I also think, so then scenario 2 is my thought.
Go ahead, please. No, go ahead, Courtney. Sorry, Councilmember Johnson.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So I have a hard time looking at this as a never-ending pot of money and that we can just keep raising it. That said, I also have a hard time on scenario 1, although it is my leaning, to have the public hearing tonight but not know what that $200,000 worth of essentially cuts looks like. And if this looks like, if it's going to change it to look like a prefab building, that's certainly not what we want in town. I think either way, I don't know that we have the 4.95, I think it gives the impression that we just keep raising and raising in a project that was originally going to be under 4 million. So I think in respect to some of the feedback that I've received, I'm not comfortable with raising it any higher than that 4.75 number, which was intended to give us plenty of room and was going to give us a $100,000 wiggle room when we set the no higher than limit a few weeks ago, and now that's not enough. So when do we say when is kind of where I'm coming from, and is guiding my preference towards project scenario 1.
Could I ask just a couple of clarifying questions?
Yep.
When you say that feedback that you received, feedback from whom?
I've received, Krista's reached out to me, I've received a
Oh, I
message
don't-
from her.
I
I've
don't need
received-
like specific people, like the public?
Yeah.
Okay, all right,
residents,
okay,
yep,
all right.
about the price of this project and,
What's your phone number?
sorry.
No, that's fine, that's fine. So the second part of that clarifying question, I think, is really designed to you guys. So the 4.75 for the Broadway City Hall project, if we look and we direct staff, Wold and Kay, to recommend $200,000, is that already assuming the $80,000 for the roof? So it's essentially $280,000.
The 475.
We're changing the roof regardless, so we're saving $80,000 right off the bat.
You have to do all the things that we discussed and cut an additional 200,000.
So just for the record, could you just reiterate all the things that we discussed?
Sure.
Thank you.
So we're
Oh, okay.
We're gonna be paying for the fire station public services building renovation for temporary city hall. We're gonna restructure the payments to contractors, probably the first two, so we can save on capitalized interest costs. We're gonna make some minor changes that don't disrupt the space needs or exterior building elements. And then we're gonna redesign the architectural roof of the council chambers lobby section.
So we're
In
doing
order to-
all of that
You'd have
and
to do all
eliminating.
that, and if you wanted to get to 4.75, you'd have to find an additional 200,000. So we'd be coming back with a reduction in space in the building and some building element changes.
Can I ask another
Please,
clarifying
please.
question? So in order to figure out what we have to do to save that 200,000, and I think this is for Wold and Kraus Anderson, what is that gonna cost us? I assume the meter's already running, but what will that?
We have a fixed fee with Wold, so
Okay,
it
so it's
doesn't,
not gonna,
there's no additional. I mean, frankly,
Okay.
you could set the public hearing for the 4.95, and have Wold and staff and KA go through that exercise, and,
It wouldn't cost any more.
well, and you'd still have the max. You're not saying you're gonna spend it. If you choose to change the plans, it'll still come in low, so you're really just setting the ceiling, kind of similar to when you set the preliminary budget in the fall. You set it, that's the ceiling, that's the most you're gonna spend, but you can still cut it, and you can say, no, we're gonna cut $200,000, and if they provide you with that information and you wanna cut it, you still have the ability to do so. If you set it for 4.75, you're saying, no matter what, we're gonna take that $200,000 worth of cuts.
Sure.
That's kind of the options you have.
thank you.
This has been a painstaking process. It's been a long time. I first said blow up the building and build it. I said that the first week we found out that it was condemned. That's been 2 years. It's been a long time. And it's frustrating when we hire the best of the best to come in and build our project, and we're told that we got to go to the trough again. You guys understand our frustrations very well. I know that. I also am familiar with change orders and construction costs, how they can fluctuate. I'm looking at, I like option 2, not to exceed the 4.95. But with your wealth of experience, I certainly hope you guys can put the screws to some of the suppliers and get the cost of some of the product down. That's our best bet. That's what I'm hoping for.
How come it's always so easy to add 200,000? And it's always such
It's
a
painful.
pain to cut 200,000.
It's going to be another 6-8 weeks.
It's going to be February 20th.
So if we choose scenario 2, are we going to have them go through the exercise of looking for some additional cost savings for design changes? Or are we,
It's the council's I mean, we'll do the smaller stuff, but
Okay, so
our intention would not be to look at, unless directed by council, to not do, like, change the exterior building materials and change the overall footprint. I mean, the exterior, and I should mention the piece, and that, because one of the things as we were kind of going through this, Wold had, and Kay had suggested maybe we look at exterior building materials, and as a thinking about council's feedback previously, knowing that if we change exterior building materials, we're gonna have to go back to the HPC. I was protective of that. Doesn't mean you shouldn't do that, but we're just trying to marry process and timing and budget all together. But we certainly can give you a scenario. You set the public hearing, we can come back with options that get you to 200,000. This is a city attorney question, but you could set it for 4.95, but I'm guessing you could probably reduce it to 4.75 at the public hearing if you so chose.
Yes.
and I mean, the reason I'm asking is if there's things that we can look at that are line itemed out. So maybe we don't make it all the way back down to 475, but we get close to it. Or that way we can take a peek and say, you know what, this part is still really important to us. We want to keep this, but maybe there's a few items that we haven't looked at yet, or maybe you've looked at all of them. That's something that we can cut out to bring that number down.
Yeah, we could-
Set that ceiling, but bring it down within.
We could give you like a shopping list with, you know, a text narrative and a picture and, you know, do you want this one? Yes. If you don't, I mean, we try to keep it so it's not like a list of 20 things, but some big nuggets that would make a impact.
If the rest of the council thinks that would be helpful.
You know, I absolutely abhor being at 15 feet. And so this is where my frustration, this is now a Mike Webb summation of his own kind narrative. Our job is to set a budget. We set a budget at 4.75. Why are we doing this now? Why are we going in and why is it now? We're supposed to be building a damn building. We're supposed to be tearing this down in 3 weeks. And now we're being asked to go back and cut 200,000 and come in, and now we're gonna go back and look and do the, and so, I mean, I get it, we're here, but, Monroe.
My opinion is that we should look to see if there's some ways that we can save, but I don't want us to, I don't think that we should change the exterior of the building. If there are interior things we can do to save money, fine. But we had, we took a lot of time to figure out how to make not just us, a whole bunch of people, took a lot of time to figure out how the exterior should look. So.
Took a lot of time to figure out how much money we should spend too.
What was that?
Yeah.
Nothing.
So, that's my thought. If there's, things we can do on the interior mechanically, design-wise.
What's that?
I think that's a distinct, so if the council limits that to, what I'll call cosmetic design changes, or like types of wiring, we can do that regardless. But the pieces that'll change to get you to 200,000 are gonna be the exterior, and if you don't wanna address that, and reducing the size of the building. And so.
I don't want to do either one of those things.
Oh, we have till February 20th.
Do we have to make a motion for that, or?
I believe we do. Just for procedural purposes, maybe, Mr. Harris, do you recommend a motion to cancel tonight's public hearing and to move it to February 20th?
That would be appropriate, Your Honor, or Your Honor, the mayor.
Keep it first.
Your honorable mayor.
Your honorable mayor.
I am so going to remember this on the golf course.
I'm painfully aware
Right,
of that.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we cancel tonight's public hearing and move it to
February 20th.
February 20th.
There's a motion by Councilmember Monroe.
I'll second that.
There's a
Excuse me,
second.
Mayor.
I will get to you. There's a second by Councilmember Henry. Any further discussion, Mr. Merrick?
Excuse me, thank you, Mayor and Council. I think it would be appropriate if the council wants to set the limit that we should put, because this notice requires a cap for the capital improvement plan, so you'll need to set that at the 4.75 or the 4.95 or whatever number you deem necessary.
Can you add that to your motion?
Can I amend my motion?
Please.
Okay, so what I said before, and then with a cap of 4.95 million.
Mr. Henry?
And I will amend my second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Do we need to do a roll call?
Yep. Councilmember Henry,
Aye.
Councilmember Mock,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
Nay.
Councilmember Monroe,
Aye.
Mayor Webb.
Aye. Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you. To follow up, I appreciate your openness and your ability to meet with Brent on a national holiday. please don't know that, or please know that that is appreciated, and moving forward, I think that there will be better communication. I don't think anybody's mad at this point, just disappointed, so just know that. Let's move on to, we have no unfinished business. We have new business of 9.1, redevelopment grant for 926th Street West.
Wait, did we do the consent agenda?
Did I skip over? I apologize. Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Motion by Councilmember Monroe, second by Councilmember Mock. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you for that. I totally
Truly.
skipped over that. Mary?
Hey, thank you, Mayor and Council. Good evening. So tonight I'm here to talk to you about the Community Growth Partnership Initiative grant through Carver County. As you know, we've been working for quite some time on this site, and we are planning on applying for a redevelopment grant to demolish the building and remediate soils at 926th Street. So we are anticipating that moving forward with this spring. So I want to take you first through a little timeline of the project.
You're so good at this.
Thanks. As you know, as we've just experienced, development is kind of a long process, and the city has been working on the Lenz and Bus Garage for some time. The property was purchased by the city in December of 2015, and in August, the council approved an RFP that identified development goals for the property. In May 2017, the city selected Shingaby Builders to develop senior housing on the site. While the staff and the developer had anticipated moving the project forward this fall, we thought we were going to get an application this fall. The development team has been focusing on finalizing their development partner. And from what we understand, that's been somewhat of a moving target. And we connected with the developer last week, and they have identified two final development partners. And so they've been holding on submitting an application and making us go through a TIF process in case that unit count changes and the site design changes. So they're just really trying to finalize all of their details before they ask the city to go through a TIF application, which, while disappointing that we didn't get the application in the fall, we are happy to see them moving in the right direction. So as a project partner, the city is a project partner, staff has been working over the last few months to secure funding to offset the cost of preparing the site. So finishing additional site investigation, looking for opportunities and ways that we can responsibly demolish the building on the site and clean up contaminated soils. So this winter, staff will work with Braun to complete additional site investigation work identified in the limited site investigation, and work with the developer to ensure that the project moves forward in a timely manner. And if you recall earlier, or in late 2017, we requested funds from DEED to complete that additional site investigation, and we did receive funding to support those efforts. So we're looking forward to moving that forward. So tonight, I wanted to talk with you about the Community Growth Partnership Initiative grant that will help support the city's efforts to demolish the building and pay for soil remediation on site. City staff is recommending that the city apply for the Community Growth Partnership Initiative's Redevelopment Incentive Grant through Carver County. The Community Growth Partner Initiative grant program was created and funded by the Carver County Community Development Agency in January of 2016, and the goals of the program are to increase tax base, improve the quality of life in Carver County through 3 specific strategies: affordable housing development, job creation, and redevelopment. And the project needs to be eligible for certain activities, and that includes clearance and demolition expenses, cleanup of pollution on the impacted site, and corrections to soil conditions. And we feel that this site is consistent with the identified eligible activities and the goals of the grant program. So the requirements of, I'm going too fast on this clicker. The requirements of this grant are that we have to identify proposed activities in the redevelopment plan, that the city must be supportive of affordable housing and the CDA's mission as demonstrated by the city's adoption of required resolution provisions, which the resolution that we have before tonight includes those required resolution provisions from the county. We must demonstrate a minimum leverage rate of 2 to 1, so for $2 of other funds for every $1 of redevelopment grant, and the application is due on February 1st, 2018. The decisions will be made by the CDA by February 15th, so they'll let us know whether or not we received funds by the 15th. In the next couple of slides, I want to talk to you a little bit about the redevelopment plan and some of the financials for the project as a whole and what we're asking for in the grant. So the redevelopment plan is a requirement of the application, and the redevelopment plan is basically taking the development objectives which were approved by council in August 2016 and included in the RFP for the project to pursue redevelopment of the property. So the redevelopment plan, which is in the packet, contains the required components required components of a redevelopment plan as defined by state statute, and it incorporates the guiding principles from the RFP and the development concept from Shingo B. Builders. This plan also meets the requirements of the CDA planning grant and the CDA redevelopment grant application. So next we'll talk about the financials. All right. So the maximum grant amount awarded by the county is $60,000. And as I mentioned before, communities must demonstrate a leverage rate of 2 to 1. At this time, it is estimated that the total cost of demolition and site remediation could be up to $130,000. We asked Braun and Shingleby to provide generous estimates for what they think it will take to clean up the site. And we also asked them to include estimates for lead and asbestos remediation. At this time, we don't know if there's lead and asbestos on the site and if it will need to be remediated for lead and asbestos, but we will find that out as we complete the site investigation as we move forward with Braun this winter. Let's see. So therefore, we're estimating that's $130,000. We can request an amount of $43,300 or so, $43,000. And the other funds, so the 2 to 1, can be from unrestricted sources. So we can also apply for deed grants for this money, and we can apply for other grants that would help offset the cost of asbestos and lead remediation. So that those funds don't necessarily need to come from the city.
But we need to know if we need those funds before we can ask for those funds.
Right. So as part of our process this winter, we need the actual next step is finishing that site investigation so we can actually have a real estimate of what we need to do to remediate the soils and see if we need to complete lead and asbestos remediation on the property.
So wouldn't it make sense to identify what we need to do before we decide how we're going to do it financially?
I think I understand the question. Could you tell me a little bit more?
Well, I just feel like we're talking about total projected actual site of demolition and remediation of $180,000. We're talking about 43 grant requests, but we don't know what that site is really about. So why are we 2 steps? I feel like we're 2 steps ahead when we should be here.
Yeah, that's a fair question. So I actually talked about this with the county because they only have a deadline once a year for the grant application.
Okay.
And so I said the exact same thing to the county. We don't actually know what we have, and it seems like it might be premature for us to be applying for this grant. And they said, go ahead and put an estimate together because you can, when you have your total costs, you submit your receipts to the county and then we'll reimburse you. Because the risk is that if we wait until next
Sure.
year to
We don't-
apply for the grant, then, and the project has already been built, then we've left money on the table. And
Okay.
we would like to have the opportunity to.
That makes more sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So,
Why wouldn't we apply for 180, or for 60,000 for the grant if it's a 2-to-1 ratio?
that's a good question. I confirmed because of last time with Councilmember Monroe. So basically, you're dividing it by 3 is what I understand, and I'll
Only get 33% of what you need.
And again, I think that's a fair question because that's confusing. I did ask the county that question as well. So
The number's 130 that you're dealing with, not the 180. So we
Right.
can't get for,
yes, yeah, the 130. Yes, it's not 180, it's 130. So, again, I will confirm with the agency because as we learned with deed, it was very beneficial to do that, but I didn't want to be in a situation like that again with you guys this time, so I did confirm that ratio scenario with the county. So I'll double check, but
sorry to backtrack, yeah.
that's okay. So in your packet, I know that there has been some questions about kind of the total cost of the project and how the city's funds are distributed throughout the project. And so we put together an estimate of expenses related to site investigation that's been completed and what we think it might cost in the future. These are very loose numbers. But we anticipate applying for grants to offset these costs throughout the process. And we will seek funding for $180,000 worth of grants total throughout the process, or we anticipate the total project cost for this to be $180,000, and we anticipate getting grant funding of $100,000 and $100,708, and then which will require the city to match funds in the amount of $79,000. And that's not the 2-to-1 ratio. That's just we've received a Petro Funds grant, we've received deed money. Deed has a different ratio, and then we've also received a planning grant from the CDA, which was to offset planning funds, and that was a 1-to-1 ratio. So we've received several different grants, and we anticipate seeking out other grant opportunities. So that $180,000 is just total what we think we might spend to clean up that site and demolish the building and complete site investigation.
And conservative, correct?
I asked them to
I know,
give
I
a
know.
generous number, so yeah.
Thank you.
Hopefully. I know after tonight's conversation, that's a sensitive. That might be an understatement.
Yeah.
Notice.
Was it that obvious?
Thanks for recognizing that.
We're
Don't make
still
me
talking about
majorly
money?
bummed. So, yeah, I did ask them to be generous because we want to ask for more and then request, we want to request as much as we can later.
Makes sense. Appreciate your attention to that.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any, sorry, am I cutting off?
I had one more thing
Oh,
to
please,
say.
please.
Going forward, our next steps in the process, we're going to go through and clean up the application. We have to finalize a timeline. We're missing kind of, we don't have a timeline put in there yet because we were still trying to figure out what we were doing with, or what Shingobi was planning on. So we'll do that and then go through with a fine-tooth comb and copy edit. We found a couple errors in there, so
You'll spell check a few
spell
things.
check if we need to. And then,
I won't.
go ahead.
No.
And then, like I said, I'll reconfirm that. But I was this time I was like, I'm not going to be stuck in this situation with the council. So I did like I said, I'll go back and ask the county and make sure that we got those numbers right, but,
Okay, now I'm not interrupting you, correct?
right, I'm
Okay.
done.
Does anyone on the council have any questions for Mary? Please.
I do. I'm just wondering, when are we going to know the results of that lead and asbestos testing? Do you have a date?
So we have to work with Braun to get them on the schedule to complete the site investigation. We were just awarded the funds right at the end of the year, so right during, I think, December 27th or 28th, Brent? I don't know. When we, what was that?
He was on a boat.
Oh, yeah, he was in Mexico. That's right.
He was driving a boat.
Well, we were awarded the funds right at the end of the year during, well, Brent was on vacation, and
Out of the country.
Yeah.
yeah,
Where you could not be reached.
yes.
Not spending money locally.
Right. So we'll be working to get them on the schedule and complete that additional site investigation. So we don't have a date yet, but
Estimate.
we want to do it soon because
Before
we-
Memorial Day, before Easter?
That's a lot of words for saying I don't know, but
Yes.
do you have an
Do you think
estimation?
I should be a politician?
No.
No. No, I don't know, and I don't have a date yet, but we
Okay.
do want to complete it before Shingle Bee puts in an application. So
Perfect.
we want to complete it this spring.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 102-18, approving a redevelopment plan and application for the Community Growth Partnership Initiatives Redevelopment Grant for the Lenson Bus Garage site at 926th Street.
There's a motion by Councilmember Monroe,
Second.
seconded by Councilmember Mock. Any further discussion? Mary, thank you for your detail. It's very much appreciated.
Thank you, Council.
If there's no other discussion or comments, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. You're chomping at the bit. Get after it. Mr. Merrick.
Just have one item. We got an email this afternoon from Julie Frick with the Carver County CDA regarding the county's interest.
Thank you, Mary. Drive safely.
I don't have a ton of background they didn't provide, but with CDA and Commissioner Malushnik, or the county board, is interested in exploring ideas related to tourism in Carver County. So they asked
Tourism.
tourism.
Whatever.
From out east?
But they're having a CDA board meeting on Thursday, and so they're asking us for comments, which isn't a short.
2 days
It's a pretty short turnaround.
Just get the email?
today.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I don't know if I don't have anything to add. I mean, it's pure kind of. So I wanted to connect with the council to see if there's anything you wanted to have added, or you just want to let them kind of play their process out. They're looking to have a study done on tourism opportunities in the county.
What is
Any
their request?
parameters? Just,
They want our input about tourism in the county.
Well, but they haven't, okay. No.
I like it. That's my,
I would just say if they're,
Do they want someone to attend the meeting?
If we have input, they're inviting
Only
us.
if we have input. We don't know what well.
Maybe we should send somebody.
maybe we could go to
What
the
does our,
site.
what does our county commissioner say? Does he have any information for us that he'd like to maybe present to us?
He's known for 3 weeks.
Who is our county commissioner?
Mr. Ishii.
I'm not healthy right
They-
now.
we-
I'm not healthy
I
right now.
apologize. I should have had this letter. This is from Commissioner Malushnik. My goal for this meeting is to consider and hear feedback about potentially having a tourism study performed by the University of Minnesota Extension Service through their tourism assessment program.
How much would that cost?
They don't have a dollar
Okay,
figure.
I would vote no.
This meeting is potentially the first step in making Carver County even better for tourism.
Oh, my
when
God.
what time is this meeting on Thursday?
It's January 18th, so it's Thursday at 5 p.m. at the CDA offices on Walnut. That's right next
Would
to
you
Subway.
like, would you like to represent the city?
I actually would.
Outstanding. I think you
actually
should.
would. I have a 6 o'clock meeting with HBC, so they get 1 hour
Go
of my
get 'em.
time. Okay.
Go get them.
Do it.
I will.
Yeah.
No, I will.
Outstanding. Anything else? Mr. Merrick?
Just a brief follow-up on the City Hall piece, so I'll work with Paul on getting an updated capital improvement plan on the website. We'll do a newsletter insert, or we'll do the front page of the newsletter letting people know. We'll do a blast tomorrow letting people know that the hearing's been rescheduled and a little story with that. So we'll limit it to that. If you have any other suggestions,
Simple.
happy to follow through on those.
Can we probably email the group, I can't think of the name, but kind of the Carver ambassadors, what's the neighborhood? We met at the water treatment plant, at the
Or the
well.
resident advocate group?
Yes, can we email those folks and let them know, as well as everybody who's participated in the focus group and kind of those general channels that we've used for communicating information like this about that project in the past?
Sure.
And what would the timing be on the utility bill insert? When would that be in home?
So they'd get it the first week of February.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions from? Is that all you got? Can I now move on? I'll come back to you. So we have city council communications at this point. Councilmember Monroe.
I don't have anything except for the Soggy Bottom is coming up Saturday, the 27th? Christie?
27th, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Very good. Down here at Riverside Park. It's golf.
$20, it's a fundraiser. We have food and beverages available.
And it's fun.
Big bonfire.
Yep. That's all I have.
You two ganged up on that one.
We did.
Okay.
Wasn't
Councilmember
ganging,
Johnson.
it was tag teaming.
Also fun, we've got a planning commission meeting on Thursday night.
Woo!
Oh, excellent segue.
Right? That's all I have.
That's it?
Yep.
Councilmember Mock.
Oh, not this Thursday. I'm sorry. That's the next Thursday. We have an HBC meeting, but it is not this Thursday. It is the following Thursday, so I
But
can
it is
stay.
also fun.
Yes, I can. It will be exciting, which means I can stay at the tourism meeting just as long as I please. That's all I have.
Councilmember Henry.
We had a Parks Commission meeting, and we went over the comp plan, and that was about 3 hours of fun with parks and trails and
I
new
get the sense you're
developments.
intimating that that was not fun.
It was no, really, it was
Okay.
great.
All right.
It was
Just
very,
clarifying
it was
purposes of our people at home.
very in-depth. And the commission did a great job and gave Cindy Nash a lot of direction. Other than that, the Vikings.
Woohoo!
That's all I got.
Score!
Oh, dear.
So I have two things. First off, I did attend Southwest Transit board meeting, and I think we're going to see some interesting changes with light rail and with what is happening in Eden Prairie with the station itself. Some awards were given. Adam Dunick, Bob Lindahl had a very nice. Bob Lindahl he actually helped start Southwest Transit. He's been around for a long time, and it was a very nice presentation. The second thing that I want to is probably a little bit more on the downside, but one of our firefighters has some things going on, and I want to give thought process to Tom Ryan and his family going through a pretty hard time right now. Mayor Osterdyke, same thing. Just some thoughts. Maybe think about doing something for your neighbor, something thoughtful. There's a lot of things going around, and I want to let everybody know that we're thinking about them. And I'll reach out, probably not appropriate, but if anybody needs anything from a neighborhood standpoint, let's all be there and maybe even contact the city, and we'll shovel driveways or do whatever is needed. But I just feel like there's a lot going on right now, and with the holidays and the Vikes and everything, all the good, maybe just remember your neighbor. So With that, I have no more. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.